Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, I'm a critic, consultant, and programmer based in Toronto, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Bretten Hannam, a Micmac writer and director whose previous films North Mountain and Wildhood have folded queer themes into Indigenous stories with an understated elegance. Bretten's latest, At the Place of Ghosts, stars Blake Alec Miranda and Forrest Goodluck as estranged brothers who travel back to their East Coast community to confront the shared trauma that's literally haunting them. After a strong premiere at TIFF last year and a run on the festival circuit, it opens across Canada today, and you should see it. Bretten picked Apitchatpong Weerasethakul Tropical Malady, the eerie, seductive 2004 drama about a soldier and villager who find themselves drawn to one another in modern Thailand, and then pivots to an entirely different story, which may or may not be related, about a man hunting a jungle beast. The film divided critics and audiences at the Cannes Film Festival, though it also won the jury prize, but now it stands as Apitchatpong's global breakthrough, a mysterious, enthralling story about possibilities and magic that most people will never understand. Bretten's film is about that too. This is Someone Else's Movie.
Tropical Malady is something I saw, how old was I? It was like probably 21. I just grabbed it from the movie store when you could rent DVDs.
Nice.
I got it. I would just pick things that were sort of interesting. They didn't really have like a queer section, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later because I think it is a queer movie, but it's also not. And I found out later that they would look at what I had rented from this video store and sort of like make a little section and like, this is where all the gay movies are. I was like, that's strange. Everything I've rented is in this little shelf.
You're an influencer.
I was curating for them without knowing, I guess. But yeah, so this was one of the movies I saw. It was a toss-up between this and Doom Generation by Greg Araki that got me banned from friend movie nights for a while. But
That
anyway,
was a film that people were not ready for.
They were not. I thought it was amazing, and when I shared it with my friends, they're like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, but there's something."
Just wait, in 20 years they'll be making an HBO series.
Yeah, I'm sure. But
Tropical Malady is also a film that people weren't ready for, right? Because it won the jury prize at Cannes, and it was. I caught up on some of the reviews just now, just to refresh my memory. And they, like the Western critics, like Variety, Hollywood Reporter, actively hostile.
Yes, and you can sort of understand that a little bit when you watch the movie, and then sort of compare it to like, especially what was coming out at the time, but what's how things are now. It's not a movie that is something you sit down and easily consume. Probably. Most people anyway, at least. And it has an unconventional structure, and things are not explained.
Sure. And
some things are never explained. And we're left sort of like with a lot of questions. I'm left with a lot of questions, I should say. I don't know about other people. They're probably smarter than me. But anyway, I watched this movie. I didn't understand it at all. I understood the love aspect of it, sort of, at least at the beginning. And then I was like, what is going on with this movie? And I finished watching it, and I was like, I don't really know what to feel about this, but I feel something large. But I don't know what it is. And so I watched it again. I think I watched it 2 or 3 times in a row, which I do sometimes with movies, especially if I think there's like hidden things. I'd be like upset, which is probably not really what the creators have in mind. Anyway, so I've revisited it a few times over the years, and there's just something that's really fundamental that touches me or speaks to me or echoes in me. I watched it, and the reason I mentioned it because I've watched it recently. A couple weeks ago. I've been hunting for I was like, is there a 4K version of it? But no, there's not yet.
I don't think there's even a Blu-ray.
There are rumors of a Blu-ray in a different language that maybe, I don't know if they're real or not. They could just be someone trying to trick me. But anyway, so in my search for that, I had rewatched it. And I'm like, I understand more of this or in different ways now that I'm older. and maybe have, a little bit more of experience or a little bit more time. A part of it is certainly has to deal with the land, in that case the jungle, right? And the presence of the jungle, and the presence of darkness. And also the sort of what most people would say an unconventional story structure.
Sure.
So all of those things, and they continue to tug at me. And when I rewatched it a couple weeks ago, I was still left with questions. They weren't less questions; they're just different questions.
I think every one of his films adds another mystery.
Yes.
Like he's building, and we talked about this when he was here with, I think it was Cemetery of Sadness. Or Silence? Sadness. Cemetery of Sadness. So it's been a long day, sorry.
Oh yeah, my brain's mush.
Yeah, you've been way busier than I have. But we talked about this when he was here with that, and he said that he never set out to build, because I'd made a joke about the Apitchatpong cinematic universe, because Tropical Malady references Uncle Boonyi.
It does.
Not by name, but he's in there, right? Like, I have an uncle who can remember his past lives. And he said that it's never intentional, but he does sometimes feel like he's just telling one story, and it's a story of Thailand.
Yeah.
But the challenge is he can never address any of it directly. So it all becomes mythology, and it all becomes entangled. And he doesn't know, at the time anyway, he didn't know what was going to happen if the government ever cracked down on him. And he would just have to, but he joked and said, I'm going to have to become more abstract if you could imagine such a thing. So here we are, because that's what Memoria is about.
Yes.
Like, there's nothing in that film about the realities of the world, but it's still talking about something.
Yeah.
And Tropical Malady feels to me now, having just rewatched it as well, like the first proposition.
Yeah.
Where I don't know where this is going to take any of us, but I want to tell it this way. And the bifurcated story speaks to the conflict, right? Like, that is an admission that you're never going to get the full answer. And he just, what you said about darkness, like him and Lynch, I think, are the two filmmakers who can just show you blackness and force you to look closer, like to need to know what's in there.
Yes.
And there are moments just the end of that first section, really, when someone just walks away
into
and
the
disappears.
dark. Yeah.
It's like, so we'll never. Okay, go on.
That's
and then
it.
There's another hour.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell you a completely different story, but maybe it isn't, and force you to stitch them together after the fact and look for the metaphor and figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's what he does now, right? Like, we all accept it.
Yeah.
So I think it's easier to revisit his earlier films because we're no longer struggling the way we used to as audience members. But at the same time, like, his films are so confident in their stillness and silence and refusal to open up. Like, is Kang telling the truth when he says, I only wear the uniform so people take me seriously? We've seen him in military situations. Which version of that is real? Is any of it real? And every time I revisit these films, I'm looking for clues to the future films somehow. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you end up looking forward as well as backwards.
Yeah, which is an interesting. It's an interesting place to be. It would be a very different experience to watch this when it came out. Like, I don't know how I would have reacted. Probably I would have been. I hope I would have been a fascinated film student. But often, when you're that age, you're like, anyway. But now it's sort of like, this thing it's been established, right? It's like, this is a continuation. There's a history of this. These stories that all, like you said, they build on each other, or they overlap each other like a palimpsest of stories of Thailand, of place, which to me is what's very fascinating. Because when I think of what I do, I think of place, right? And everything springs from home territory, from the land, from the culture, from the people. So I see parallels there. And then when I was rewatching it recently, when we were talking about darkness, I think there's I came across a Q&A that he had done a couple of years ago. And he's like, yeah, we had 3 DPs, and the first one was let go because I wanted to go darker. Like, I wanted to see even less. You know, in the jungle, it's dark, right? You can't really see anything. I'm like, yeah, I've experienced this at home. Like, I will go out in the forest at night, or I go camping. When I go camping, I bring a sleeping bag and a dog. And I sleep outside, and sometimes it's quite bright because the moon is there, the stars are there. Sometimes it's totally overcast, and you hear things, and there's things in the dark, and you don't know what that is. But you just sort of have to accept that, like, you don't know what that is, and you hope it's not a bear. But certainly, like, that's the sense of part of place of, like, you know, this jungle that surrounds you, and the noises that are there too. Like, they're everywhere. Like, it's so, like, I don't know what any of the sounds are, but, like, you know, the presence of it is pervasive. It's everywhere. And the crew, just even there's like one shot, or there's a couple of shots, that it's like it's just silhouettes of the trees from inside the jungle pointing up and out, and the only sound is the creaking of like branches as they move in the wind, or they rub against each other, or like, you know, some cool animal that I'm sure I would love to see, but I never see. And it's just, it contributes to a sense of, I would say, sort of wonder or mystery, right? And that's something very fundamental to human experience. We all come from a land. Like, we all come from somewhere. That's part of who we are. We've forgotten some of that here and there. But it's still built in. It's still sort of intrinsic. So when I see something like that, I immediately, like, you know, antenna goes up. And I'm like, okay, drawing me in. What is this going to give me? And what it gives me is questions.
Yeah. But the questions are the best part.
Yes.
Right? Like, the need to understand further as opposed to having everything laid out for you. And if, you know, you distribute a monograph about the political situation in 2004 when you watch Tropical Malady, or if you know, like, if you even need to go into detail about some of the structures that we see, I'm being very vague deliberately, in your film, I don't want to know that. I want the movie to make me look closer.
Yeah, I think there's a widely said saying, show, don't tell. Mm-hmm. But then there's a second part that I ascribe to, which is imply or imagine, don't show.
Yeah.
Or don't tell either. But I think with Tropical Malady in particular, the diptych structure of it, what he does so well to me is he makes a movie in my head with this contrast but emotional continuity between both sections, if you can call them that. So I'm always quite fascinated by, like, that's a movie that it lives in me, only me, and it's different in you, and it's different in everyone that watches it. I'm like, that's something that, like, you know, special effects, VFX cannot touch, right? It actively engages and activates our imagination, which is super cool.
Yeah. Well, why am I seeing this now? Is always the key question I'm asking.
Yeah.
In anything. And there are moments in all of his films that just stop me dead that way. Mm-hmm. There's a throwaway line in Uncle Boon Me, and it's like, oh, I don't want to go back there. It's filled with ghosts. And it's just so casual and accepting of this situation where, well, you don't go there. That's where the ghosts are. And no one ever comments on it. No one ever mentions it. And I want to know, like, when did they figure that out? There's, like, where does this come from? But the idea that legends predate language and feeling and civilization and society and interactions are based on this sort of bone-deep knowledge of what will happen in these places. And it's there in your work as well, but this time way more so. Like, it's when you picked Tropical Malady, I hadn't yet seen the movie and watched it like the next day. I had some trouble getting the DRM to work. I had to play it through. It's fine, I watched it. And when I finally did see it, it's like, oh, of course. They are in conversation with each other over 20 years, but at the same time, yours is, like, the context is completely different, the language is completely different, and I don't just mean the spoken language, but it's the vibe is there. I hate saying vibe.
The vibe, yeah.
But you've made a movie about history and it's given me the same kind of shudder of recognition that I get from Apitchatpong.
That's an enormous compliment.
I know, I'm saying that. Hey, it's Norm interrupting my own show to bring you up to speed on Shiny Things, my newsletter about physical media, culture, and the odd streaming project. Last week's coverage included my reviews of new editions of Highest to Lowest, Dust Bunny, Sleepers, The Fabulous Baker Boys, Wrong is Right, and the Magnificent Seven collection, and of course there's today's What's Worth Watching dispatch for paid subscribers. Sign up for a 14-day free trial at shiny-things.ghost.io or find a link at the Semcast Blue Sky account. You like reading about movies? I like writing about them. Come check it out. But really, there are a lot of people who have tried this and misfired, especially in, like, American genre cinema, where for some reason the idea that you can overlap time periods and things like that. But the language that you're using is something that is much more fluid and also rigid. Like, there are rules in place, and it's up to me as the viewer to figure out what they are. And gradually understand that the rules aren't that important because it's about the characters we're watching and how they're experiencing it.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite kind of dreamlike genre cinema, if you want to call it anything. But it's what he does as well, right? Like, you come into this world, see what's going on, figure it out, and then just leave changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of something that I admire when a filmmaker is able to do this. Tropical Malady certainly, to me, because it's one of the earlier films that I saw, it's stuck there now. I can't get it out ever. And I probably, like, continually come back and reference it. There's even qualities within that, you know, I tried to reach, but I don't think we really did it in this particular film. But certainly there's a moment in Tropical Malady at the end, to spoil it,
20-year-old movie, it's fair.
with the tiger, right? And there's just this immense feeling, this pressure, this, like, what is this? Like, this vastness, at the same time that there's a connection. It's solid, it's tangible. And it was something that I held sort of, I guess, in my heart when we were working on the end of Skede de Mojuegarik, and thinking of, like, it's not the same, really, quite at all, but still to find a similar echo, I guess, of something. And it's when we were filming that particular part on the lake, and I was watching it, I was like, I think there's something here. I have no words to describe it, right? It's just a thing where you get to a place, hopefully, for me, at least this is how it works, is like things are aligned or they fall in place the way they do, and you're very lucky. And then by instinct, it's like, no, this is what we should do, or yeah, we're on the track. There's something. And then later, when you're, like, editing, you're like, what was that thing? I hope we can find it. And, you know, we worked quite hard to find those things, rediscover them, right? That whole movies are made 3 times or more.
That is what I wanted to ask, too. The script is so elliptical, but also the structure of it is rigid. Right? You have to know where you're going in order to write something like this, and then pretend that, like, to the audience that's intuitive. But the structure of it involves kind of alluding to things that we never fully see. Some things we do see, and others that are just left completely off screen. Entire histories go by. You know, it's a decade-spanning narrative that takes place over the course of a week, I think, if I've got it right.
More or less.
But how did you get there? Like, when did you know that was actually going to work?
When I saw it finished, really, to be honest, it's a huge risk, right? I'm really not sure how I tricked everyone into taking a chance on it at this point. But yeah, I spent 10 years writing it, right? And so that's part of it, is like, it's a fine balance. There was more stuff that, was removed. And then there was stuff that we shot that we didn't use, that you just didn't need it. Or it was, in the case of, shooting a bunch of stuff, it's like, some of the stuff was amazing, looked so good, but it was like, do we need it? And we didn't. So if we didn't need it, it just got reduced or shifted or moved around or just slightly adjusted. But really, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't really know. I think it works, and so it's sort of like, when I was saying, when I watched the last, sign off on this, the film is done, director, please give us the okay. I watched it and I was like, yeah, it's all there. I feel these things and it all seems to be, flowing, and then sent an email and I'm like, yeah, I feel this, I think it's great, and it's changed a lot, but we found it, guys, and I feel really good about this. Sent the email, 5 seconds later, I'm like, wait, maybe I'm totally wrong. So I don't. And then we were watching it when it premiered, it's like I'm holding my breath the whole time and listening. Everyone's so quiet and the audience is so quiet. I'm like, oh no, everyone's so quiet. But it wasn't like restless quiet moving around. It was like quiet, like, what is going on? I'm like, okay, maybe that's not so bad.
Yeah, no, the nervous energy is something that I had to experience that with audiences as well, with films, and to understand that you could trust them. And that the weirdest thing about going from critic to programmer to whatever I am now is figuring out in advance how it will play with an audience, which I now realize is how filmmakers have to live all the time.
Oh yeah,
and it's horrifying. How do you survive? How do you start anything when you just can't predict the reception?
It's there's a lot of trust in the story. I spent so long writing, my process is quite long, and is informed by a lot of discussion with family and friends and community, and with the land, just going out and just thinking about the story and spending time with the story, spending time with the people in the story. It takes such a long time. To me, they're living things. A story is a living spirit, right? And I am the one who is sort of taking it by the hand and saying, come into the world and let's share you with people. And then there's a whole team behind me, around me, with me, supporting. And they're like, what does the story say today? I'm like, well, here's what's going on with the story. But I don't know how other people will react to it. So by that point at the end where it's I'm signing off, I think it's in a good place. The story feels good to me. I'm introducing my friend or my child, I guess, to other people, and they might not like them. They may hate them. Actively or passively, or so it's you hope for the best. I thought this kid was going to be a doctor, but has ended up being a ceramicist. But they're happy, and that's sort of where my, I guess, part of that journey ends. And now it's out and in the world, and other people will have relationships with it. Love, hate, indifference. Never hearing of it, but yeah, it's there's a lot of blind trust.
Yeah, and you can't protect it, right?
No.
That's the other thing. Once it's in the world, it's on its own.
It's hard. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I'm an uncle. I have nieces and nephews, and you see them from tiny little creatures growing through the years, finding their way. And the instinct is, you want to protect them and shield them from everything. That's not good, though, right? And you can't, A. And B, I think that can end up causing more trouble. Not just talking about children, but movies as well, right? It's not, you have to sort of it's its own thing now, and away it goes. But I'm still biting my nails back here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what Joe said about his work too, and I keep saying Joe because it's simpler and easier, but I always worry that the audience isn't going to know, the listener's not going to know. But I guess if you're listening to a movie podcast at this point, you know who Apitchatpong and Joe are the same person.
Yeah.
But he would say, like, it's okay if people fall asleep in my movies, and it took me a while to get used to that. He said that it was going to happen, whether he wanted to or not. And I think jokingly at some point he said that the whole point of Memoria is that noise will wake you up, whatever it is.
That's fantastic.
But there are other tones that he plays with that are, as we saw with the reception to Tropical Malady by the Western critics, like completely unpalatable for the audience that is seeing this film. Yeah. And so, like, the fact that you saw it at the age that you saw it and connected to it, I was already in my 30s, and I was aware of his work, and it was like, okay, I will watch this, and I was lucky enough that I got to see it in the theater. And
oh wow,
yeah, because the sound design,
I can only imagine.
It was a small press screening. I want to say it might have even been like the Varsity 7, the tiniest room.
Oh, okay, yes.
But the sound was digital-ish.
Yeah,
like, it was definitely good. And while I would have liked a bigger screen, it was still kind of the right space to be immersed in it. And then I saw Boonmi in a proper room, and it's just like, someone will fall asleep. It won't be me, but I accept that. But I'm older and kind of more seasoned, I suppose. So the fact that you got to connect to it feels even more like a miracle.
I'm weird though, so I have a pin that proves it. If you were like, that's upside down, I'm like, I can read it.
We're all weird. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, I think weird things are amazing. More people should be weird. But yeah, I something sticks in my mind that I've noticed it, but I know I've noticed it before when I rewatched the film. It's sort of like, the second half of the film, the ghost characters going around, stark naked in the jungle. I'm like, that's probably cold. Or maybe not, in Thailand.
It's a humid region.
It's a humid region, yeah. I've been. It's quite lovely. Parts of it are insanely hot. And then parts of it are a little chillier. And I can't remember where he said. I think he said it was up near Chiang Mai. Anyway, whatever. That's neither here nor there. Well, it's specifically somewhere. Yes. But anyway, this time watching it, I realized it's not as bifurcated as it really is. Right? There's little overlaps and dovetails and stuff. And I know I've noticed that before, but there's one shot in particular that for whatever reason I was like, how did I not really draw attention, which is like the naked figure at the beginning, in that wide shot going through. I'm like, oh yes, how? I'm like, am I seeing this for the first time? No, I've seen this film like so many times, but for whatever reason, that was like, my brain made that connection, right? I'm like, holy jeez, films are so amazing that you can like watch something like, I don't know, 15 or 16 times over the course of decades and still like find new things and new connections. I'm like, oh, now I'm watching it with this new context going through it. I'm like, wow, holy crap. It's like a whole new movie to me.
Yeah. I think it's because if it's the first thing you see and then the rest of that first hour is so mundane in its surroundings.
Yeah.
Like there's malls and cafes. Yeah, exactly. There's nothing in it that feels as magical as that. And so your brain just maybe files it away early on. It's like, is that like a distributor logo or something?
Yeah.
You just don't think about it. And then I have to admit, I had forgotten about it myself. It's just like, oh, yeah, right, when I watched it this last time. But it's what you're saying. Like there are overlaps that are designed to kind of pierce the veil between the two stories he's telling, and let you know that it's permeable.
Yeah, it's not so cut and dry as like part one, part two. It's like, no, there's like weaving and exchange that goes back and forth. But yeah, the whole, it's crazy. And to me, talking about like to circle back a little bit about, it's a queer movie, but it's not. It is in a way because it's two men. I don't know if he was out when he made this. I don't really remember where it falls on the timeline.
In Thailand.
Yeah,
so it would have been a bad idea.
Yeah, so I think you can. That's the vibe that I sort of get. That it's, there's so much under the surface. But really, to me, that's clear, and I think for like a queer audience, certainly that maybe comes across more. But beyond that, it's love, right? It's a relationship, it's connection, it's like intimacy. And then for that to be there, and especially expressed through that mundanity of things, it's like, well, I guess I was going to say the movie theater, but that gets a little handsy. But like cooking, being with family, the dog, all these things, they're just sort of like mundane. They're together. They're together, and it's unspoken. And then to go, and that I would say last shot or middle shot of like walking into darkness, that's sort of like, wait, what? And I remember being like so young and being like, what? And I was so like upset at that shot because like it's the end of the movie. Clearly it's the end of the movie. I wasn't really looking at runtimes or whatever, but I was like, this is the emotional end of this, and he's going away, and I don't understand. And then it continues on for a bit. I'm like, okay, I'll keep watching, but I don't understand how it could, like, what's going to happen next. And then I certainly didn't expect what happens next, which is like, okay, now we're doing this other thing. But it's not totally, new.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so I'm emotionally carrying forward where I was with these characters and the characters going to this next part. I'm like, okay, one is a soldier and one is a tiger, ghost, shaman. And it's like, okay, what?
Yeah. But who are they to each other?
And it's like, is this another life? Are they meeting again? Is it an alternate reality? Is it like, what is going on? So it's sort of like, it blew my mind. It blew my mind wide open. And then within that component of the second half, the lights with the tree and the spirits rising up and all that stuff, I was like, holy, what's going on? Yeah. It reminds me of stories I heard when I was younger, right? Ghost stories or like, those type of things that are like folk tales, you would say, or traditional stories or legends, cultural stories. And I was like, holy shit, there's like, I was sure for a few minutes that there was a problem with the disc.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did it skip? What's going on? And hence my, interest in it. And I'm like, no, this is how it is. And then like watching it again and again, and then people being like, yeah, and my friends being like, that's boring. It's a weird movie.
Yeah, they're wrong. They're just wrong. My thanks to Bretten Hannam, whose beguiling new drama At the Place of Ghosts is now playing in theaters across Canada. Thanks also to Nicole Moriello and Ginny Monaco. They know what they did. You can find Bretten on Instagram at Bretten Hannam, all one word, and you can find Tropical Malady on DVD from Strand Releasing, and it's streaming on Canopy in the US. You can find me on Blue Sky at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the show is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/Semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of Someone Else's Movie, 40 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it or this show in general, please say so. Leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps, it truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. Stay safe, watch movies, get all the boosters. I'll see you next week.